All right, so we're going to talk about Sig Figs here. Little tutorial on Sig Figs. This one, I'm going to go over the two ways to determine Sig Figs. The first way, the rules, and these rules, I've kind of rewritten them a little bit differently than I explained them in class, so hopefully they'll be maybe a little bit more clear. And then I'm also going to go over Champ's oversimplification. So that we can go through all of this. So first of all, if you point your attention, sorry, there was the bell, up here for the rules, okay, right here, it looks like here are the 5 rules for Sig Figs. So the first rule is all non-zero digits are significant. Second rule is zeros between significant figures are significant. Third rule, zeros at the end of a number without a decimal point are not significant. And then only zeros after a non-zero digit are significant when a decimal point is present. And then zeros can be made significant by placing a bar above the zero if needed, okay? So if we come over here to the right and look at the examples, letter A, well, that one's pretty easy. That one would have 3 Sig Figs. Ooh, can't write a 3. There we go, 3 Sig Figs, okay? Rule number 1, all non-zero digits are significant, done and done. On B, we're looking at rule number 2. Zeros between significant figures are significant. So that 0 in between is significant. The ones are obviously significant due to rule 1. So this one would also have, and I'm going to write this one above, 3 Sig Figs. Can't get there we go. Can't get the pen to cooperate. Then we're looking at C. Now C, the 2 and the 5 are obviously significant. We got to look at that 0 to figure out if it's significant. We look at rule number 3. There is no decimal. Okay, so there is without a decimal point, and they are not significant, so that 0 is not significant to Sig Figs. Okay, so if we come down here and look at E, and I'm going to just go ahead and erase this right here real quick so that I can rewrite the 3 up above. Okay, so we look down here at D. Now we do have a decimal point, so we're at rule 4 here, okay? And it says only zeros after a non-zero digit are significant when a decimal point is present. Well, there is a decimal point present, okay? So that means any 0 to the right of a non-zero is significant. So in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all 5 digits are significant. Now in E, we have the same rule. In E, we have the 0 down here at the end that is after a non-zero. There is a decimal point present. The zeros to the left of that 6 would not be significant, but the 0 to the right would be, so that would have 3 Sig Figs. Now I know F looks a little strange, but it can happen where we just put a decimal point at the end of a number. There is a decimal point present there. That is by design. The reason we do that is to make those zeros significant if we ever need to report our answer to 3 significant figures. So, or an other number of significant figures for any case. In this case, it happens to be 3 because those zeros are after a 2 and there is a decimal point present. They are significant. Now, if you take a look at letter G, all right, in G, we have placed the bar above the 0, so now we're down to rule 5. That 0 there where the bar is above is now significant. The 1 is significant, and that means the 3 zeros between the 2, back to rule number 2, are significant because they're trapped. So it would be 1 for the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 Sig Figs for that measurement there. Okay? So that is how you use the rules, the 5 rules for determining Sig Figs. Now, if we're looking at the Champ oversimplification, as I erase over here, the Champ oversimplification is basically comes down to one question. there's less things that you have to know, but you have to think a little bit more. If you use the rules, you have to know more, but there's not as much thinking. So let's talk about the oversimplification. The oversimplification is simply, is the 0 a placeholder? In other words, does the 0 tell me where the decimal place goes? If the 0 is a placeholder, it's telling me where the decimal point goes, it is not significant. If it doesn't, that 0 is part of the measurement, it is significant. So A is, again, pretty easy, all right? There's no zeros, they're all significant. That would have 3 sig figs. In B, is that 0 holding place, or is it part of the measurement? Is it telling me where the decimal point goes? No, it is not. We can't have 101 without that 0 in between. It is not a placeholder. It is significant. That's 3. Now, when we get to C, the only reason we have a 0 there is to indicate that the decimal point should go after that 0. So that's 250. It's telling us the correct order of magnitude. If I lose that 0, it makes it 25. So the 0 is just there holding place, telling me that the decimal place goes after the 0 and not the 5. This is an implied decimal point because there's not an actual decimal point there. So that 0 is not significant. There would be 2. Now in D, are those zeros telling me where the decimal point goes? The answer is no, it is not. All right. It is not telling me that because the decimal point is telling me where the decimal point goes. So therefore, they're all significant. So we'd count them all. There's 5. In letter E, we've got 2 sets of zeros here. Now, the zeros to the left of the 6, again, are placeholders. They are telling us the decimal place has to go here. They are not part of the measurement. The 0 to the right of those numbers, however, has nothing to do with that decimal point, so it is significant. So the zeros to the left are placeholders. The 0 to the right is not, so this has 3 sig figs. F, again, there is a decimal point, so the zeros are not telling me where the decimal goes, and so they are significant because they are not placeholders. And finally, in G, we've got the bar rule. The bar rule, you're still going to have to kind of remember the bar rule for this. Champs oversimplification doesn't work a whole lot here, but that 0 right there is still significant. Excuse me, there we go. That one is still significant. So that means all of those are significant. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are significant. 5 sig figs there. All right. That should do it for sig figs. That will be the end of this tutorial.